when I was in high school or college, or even in my 20s, I never really thought about my my running weight. And it really wasn't until oh, my senior year at university, one of my high school competitors, we kind of grew up in the same region. I was chatting with him at a big meet, and he'd had a really big breakthrough year that year, and was always good, but went from being like a 29:30 10K runner to like a 28:30, which that 1 minute is pretty crucial at the collegiate level, especially back in, this would have been 2000. So kind of well before people were running crazy times and before there was the super shoes. So 28:30 made you an elite college runner. And he came from an awesome program. So I knew it wasn't the training that was different. And he attributed the significant improvement to really just a conscious effort on his nutrition. And I think he has sort of fallen into a trap that a lot of us do in college, where you sort of eat and maybe drink like a college student, despite trying to perform at a high performing level. And he said he made some tweaks to his nutrition, and all of a sudden, without starving himself, that the weight just kind of melted off, lost, a little bit. Maybe, I think you mentioned like somewhere in the 5-pound range. This obviously wasn't a big guy to begin with, but that sort of took him from being a good college runner to an elite. And to be honest, I had just not thought about it back then. I was always pretty lean, and so I don't think there was a whole lot of extra weight I was carrying around. But fast forward 20 some odd years is where I really do notice the difference. And this sort of phase in the training cycle, maybe 2 months out, is where I start thinking about, how do I start getting down to a slightly leaner racing weight. And you'll probably have noticed if you follow on my channel that, I've been doing a series on the Matt Fitzgerald's racing weight. And that's kind of the mindset I use. And that's, you're not really cutting weight just for the sake of cutting weight. It's more through just improving your nutrition and eating some more whole foods, which just naturally cuts out some of the garbage and the junk that, for me, makes it more conducive to me overeating. And I wouldn't say I eat terribly the rest of the year, but I do love, my cakes and sweets and pastries, and definitely those are my vices, which, running can sort of afford me. I can eat those things and I don't blow up. And, so for most of the year, I'm not too worried about taking those things in. And so I do need to make this adjustment kind of going into my racing season, where I'm probably just running a few extra pounds heavier than I could be. And at least in the last few years, I've been able to sort of shed those mostly just by eliminating a lot of the simple sugars, and basically still eating lots of fruits, lots of veggies, lots of carbs. I mean, I'm not saying I don't eat carbs. I'm not eating a lot of stuff with refined sugars. And I think it's it's one of those things that definitely takes a bit of motivation, especially when my habits and my lifestyle make access to those things, those like cakes and whatnot, really, really easy. Um, so in this mid part of the training block, I think the training aspects of it for me don't really get more difficult. I start maybe going a little bit faster and hitting lots of miles, but I think the extra slight mental toll is just getting better about cleaning up my diet, and that's definitely a personal thing for me. Some people I'm so impressed how disciplined they are all year round, and to be honest, they don't even think about it as a discipline. That's just how they eat. And I'll admit to being a little bit sloppy with my diet for a big chunk of the year. So I figure 6 weeks going into each race, I'm usually typically only racing twice a year. It's not a huge price to pay for me to be able to run well. And it's probably a couple of minutes, and so depending on where you're coming from, maybe it's worth it, maybe it's not from a pure race time perspective. But I think about how hard I work to shed a couple of minutes in terms of mileage and in terms of workouts, that if doing probably the right thing anyways and cleaning up my diet, if that can give you the same result without improving or increasing my chances of getting injured, like I would if I was doing harder workouts or more miles, then it's kind of a bargain in terms of risk reward. There's the only downside is not being able to partake in some of those things, which I guess for me is a big downside because I do miss those things. But I sure love shaving those 2 minutes off too. I have a few gauges that I use to tell whether or not, whether I'm at racing weight or how close I am. I don't have anything real fancy in terms of body fat measurement, but I do have a set of whatever $60 or $80 scales that measure body fat percent. And if I take the measurement at the same time each day, I think it's pretty reliable in terms of how it measures me. And that might not be like doing a perfectly accurate job versus like a gold standard. But I do feel that for me, if I'm using the same tool week after week or year after year, then I think it does a pretty good job of consistently saying where I'm at. So I just use those along with my weight. And then also, the bigger one is just the mirror. I can typically see a lot better definition, like in my obliques, around my ribs. Definitely looks a little bit softer there in my off season. My quad muscles pop out more once I get down to race weight. A little bit of a fat around the lower back where a lot of people carry it. I can start to see those things disappear more once I'm getting to a weight that I, feel good about racing at. On my scales, it tends to be around like 10% body fat. And I've actually noticed that the weight associated with 10% body fat has creeped up a little bit over the last, 4 or 5 years. And I can sort of see it looking back on older race pictures. I think my thighs and my glute area probably have picked up some weight, like in terms of muscle. I'd say 5 years ago, I was not as good about the weight training and the prehab work. And a big part of my routine is around glute work and and squats and whatnot. So I think a lot of that helps build up those muscles. I remember when I was young, everyone always said I had little skinny legs, and I don't get accused of that anymore. Definitely not in the distance runners community, at least. My legs are actually kind of on the thicker side, more tree trunk like now.
With something, they like my sound. They think I'm funky. Goodness, girl, you huge.
Who's your friend? Or is that your butt?
Which, probably wouldn't work if I was trying to run sub 210. But for me, as I've discussed, I think a big part of success is keeping injuries away. And I think as you get older, having a little bit of extra muscle mass can help keep those injuries away. So I definitely don't fret too much about a little bit of extra weight there, and just sort of accept that that's sort of part of the deal of having some longevity. And I'm 47 now, so being able to run in a way that I'm really proud of at this age, I think comes back to having some extra strength and muscle mass in those areas. So anyways, my racing weight probably used to be in the 147 range. This past year, I was still shooting for getting to 153. When I got down to 10% body fat going into Chicago into October, when I never actually got it to 153, my weight. So I think it was just probably an extra pound of muscle. Oh, I'm curious, what have other people witnessed? I know naturally, as we age, we lose muscle, but I'm pretty overtly trying to combat that. So even though that's a natural phenomenon, I think me being conscious about trying to maintain that muscle mass, might be taking me in the other direction, which, hey, I won't complain about it. I think a year ago, I read Peter Attia's Outlive, and he's a big proponent of that. That's one of the things that we need to do to have a good quality of life in our older years is to build yourself up enough of a buffer of muscle mass and strength, so that as you do gradually deteriorate your strength and muscle mass in your senior years, you're doing so from a base level of having, maybe even some extra muscle, so that if you lose 1% or so a year, 20 years later, if you're at 80% of where you used to be, you're still in a good spot. So definitely a good way to think about things, of sort of like building a retirement account for your muscle bank. build up a little bit so that as you get older, you have something to draw upon each year.
Today's workout started with a 4-mile warm-up, then moved into doing a half marathon at marathon pace. In the middle of the half marathon, I threw in a 1-mile surge at lactate threshold. The half marathon pace for the most of it was intended to be 5:32 pace, and then the lactate threshold pace was 5:16 pace. Threw in a bunch of hills at a 3% incline. They were about a mile long, and then made up for that with adjusting it to a 0% incline. On the uphill sections, I was running those at 5:56 minutes per mile, and on the 0% incline, I was running those at 5:19.
So that ended up being a 1:12:24 for the half marathon, which was right where I was looking to be, a few seconds fast. So that's good. The effort was a little bit higher than I had hoped. It might be that I'm still just getting used to the ups and downs. I was trying to average out at a 1% grade, which I think is about equivalent to the winner's distance that you don't have on the treadmill. So basically just alternating between a 3% incline and a 0. The big hills at Boston are kind of somewhere in that ballpark, around 3%. I think the steepest incline is a little bit more than that, but like the Heartbreak Hill section going up through Newton, those are approximately 3% incline hills. So definitely trying to get comfortable at that grade and just get used to the pace. I think in years past, I would look down at my watch and see that I was running like 6-minute pace and get frustrated. But it's kind of encouraging to see that, a 5:32 effort is equivalent to a 6-minute pace. So I'm actually doing well if I'm going up those hills near the 20-mile mark at 5 anything under 6-minute pace is probably right on my goal pace. So anyways, it's good to get kind of used to that, especially late in this run. Honestly, I'm not as beat up as I would be at the end of the marathon, but I also had like close to 90 miles this week, and so I think my legs have their toll on them. So I'm hoping that this is getting them ready. Today was, for a Saturday, a slightly shorter day, but I'll still get 19 miles in here, and definitely got a good workout out of it. Yeah, my left hamstring kind of tweaked a little bit there. I'm still having a little bit of minor right leg Achilles pain, and so I'm wondering if I'm having to work that left hamstring a bit harder to compensate for it, because it started to act up a little bit around 5.5 to 6 miles, and I was a little bit worried about the faster lactate threshold pace mile in there, but it didn't seem to get worse, and actually by like 10 miles or so, it had kind of mostly gone away. It's acting up a little bit right now. I've got a bit of a limp, but it's hopefully a little bit of ice, and tomorrow's an easy day. That'll make it feel better. And it's always hard to know when when to take it easy for things like that on workouts. I try not to quit on workouts, and I get burned on that once in a while by aggravating something that could have gone away, but for me, it's pretty rare where everything feels good. So I think if I got in the habit of calling it quits on a workout just because something didn't feel quite right. I don't think I'd get too many workouts in. So I don't know. It's one of those things that is tough to gauge. I think you just have to, you know, make your own calls. It's -1 Fahrenheit out today. So once again, on the treadmill. I think I mentioned on Saturday I hurt my left hamstring a little bit on the treadmill doing that marathon pace workout, and it's still been bothering me a little bit. I did a elliptical on Sunday, so that didn't bother it. Yesterday, even just trying to run at, kind of a normal easy pace, I wouldn't say it hurt a lot, but it hurt a little bit. But I found that if I slowed down and then just increased the incline to get my heart rate up, that it didn't bother. And so I'm kind of doing the same thing today. It feels a bit better today. I'm just running at like a 3% incline, and that that really slows the pace down a lot. So I don't know, I've been foam rolling it and trying to give it some extra love. Hopefully it goes away. Well, I've got my workout scheduled for tomorrow. I have a feeling I'll push it till Thursday, but we'll see. So I ended up swapping things up a little bit this week. Usually today, Wednesday, was going to be a harder, longer workout, but I still feeling a tweak in my left hamstring. It's getting better each day, so I don't think it's going to be an issue, but I didn't want to sort of do something I would regret and try to force a workout today. So I'm just going to do a bit of a medium long run, which I think has big benefits anyways. One of the big differentiators between the Daniels running formula and the Pete Fitzinger advanced marathon series is that Pete's program is pretty religious about running a medium long run in the middle of the week, which is something that the Daniels program typically omits and puts in place, usually like a lactate threshold workout or a marathon pace workout in its place. So for this week, I'm going to jump over to more like a Fitzinger advanced marathoning plan and work in a medium long run, which, I think it's debatable which approach is better anyways. But given my circumstance this week and given that, I can run like 7-minute pace here with no issues and no pain, and even just kind of approaching a minute a mile faster starts to bother my hamstring. So I'm just gonna kind of keep it easier today, and definitely still have lots of time to get the the faster stuff in. I think what bothered it was I was just running on Saturday at a faster clip than I was used to, and sort of two folds there. One, I had adjusted my VDOT, so I had noticed a progression in my fitness, and I was getting faster. So I boosted my goal paces up a little bit, which made me running about 4 seconds a mile faster. But I think actually the bigger differentiator was my switch to integrating the ups and downs. So, like I was talking about on my weekend workout, even though my goal pace was like in the low 530s per mile, I spent very little time at that pace. And about a third of the time was at 6-minute pace up a hill, and the other 2/3 was at a 0 incline, which I sort of equate to being a little bit downhill on a treadmill. Um, at at about 16 or so seconds faster. So I was running those at about 5:18 per mile, which I think was more than a little bit taxing on my hamstrings, just running that fast. And that's sort of always been an issue for me. When I raced a lot of 5Ks and even like especially miles in college, that was my bottleneck. My hamstrings would start screaming once I started going too fast for too long. And so, much slower and longer now, but still sort of the same issue when I start going fast. It's kind of bothering my hamstrings. So anyways, I think it's good to sort of work those things out in training, not as much on race day, because I think race day will present the same thing. I'll get into my pacing strategy in a later video for Boston, and I think Boston is a little bit unique and can be tough to figure out the proper pacing, just because the first half of the race is so much easier aerobically. And I'm not going to say it doesn't take its toll, because all the downhill in the first half of the race can beat up your legs. And so honestly, I don't know if I've figured it out totally. Well, I know I haven't at Boston, but one thing I did notice last year was, from an effort perspective, the first half of the race last year for me was really easy, but it just took a real toll on my legs, because I was running probably quite a bit faster than I was used to, just because of the downhill. So I was, probably averaging 6 miles or 6 seconds per mile faster than my typical marathon training pace, just because the net downhill in the first half of the race is so big. So anyways, getting my legs used to that faster pace, but not faster effort, is is usually something I somewhat try to do at this point in time. But I can clearly see that I've got some work to do here to get my legs up to speed. Today's Friday. Just finishing up the week here. This, I think, might be the first week in years where I haven't run outside. So a full week on the treadmill. Definitely a few downsides to that. Like I've mentioned before, I think the harder ground outside is, does help to build up your shock absorption muscles. So I feel like I'm missing out a little bit on that. But there's still lots of time, so I'm not too worried about that aspect of it. It's just kind of, it feels a bit sterile doing all my runs in here. It's supposed to get a little bit warmer this week. And to be honest, really, it's not the cold itself that's keeping me. And today's not bad. It's 20 degrees outside Fahrenheit, which like what, minus 8, something like that, Celsius. It's more the conditions of the roads. We've had quite a bit of snow and just no time for it to melt. So all the side roads that I would like to run on, and especially the trail, it's just all super icy, super snowy. So really just not that great for running. My bigger concern is actually my my left hamstring is still giving me some issues at quicker paces. I can feel it right now at a nice easy pace, but where it really starts to bother me is when I start picking up the pace. So it's been 6 days. I heard it on my workout on Saturday, and today's Friday. So that's a bit of a setback, but that's marathon training, right? You're gonna have setbacks. It's not like I went into this training block expecting everything to go perfect. I missed the higher intensity workout on Wednesday, like I mentioned, but the silver lining there was I still got in a medium long run. I got 16 miles in with a lot of uphill. I've been favoring the uphill right now because that seems to transfer a lot of the effort to my quads and my calves. So I'm going slower and less strain on the hamstrings. So kind of inadvertently getting some extra hill work in. So it's nice to have that flexibility and that ability to work on that. So I'm supposed to do a faster workout tomorrow. We'll see. I think I don't usually give myself the option to just sort of bail in the middle of a workout. I will tomorrow. If I had 20/20 hindsight, I probably would have bailed on my Saturday workout when it started being an issue. But I wouldn't generalize that rule for me. I would say that I probably only get burned on those kinds of things maybe 1 in 5 times. And so I might miss a couple workouts here by not taking it easy. But then there's other times where, I have finished up quality workouts and then a day or two later, all those niggles are gone anyways. So anyways, that's just how it goes, right? It's always a bit of a roll of the dice to see how it's actually going to play out. And I think more than anything, a lot of it is keeping the mental strength too. Like if I sort of routinely get in the habit of giving myself the liberty to drop out of my workouts, then I just don't like having that mentality. So there's occasions where I do. Tomorrow will be one of them. If I decide that I end up running the workout, I'll also probably take a look at potentially changing things up. This might be a good opportunity to do a hill workout instead of trying to run something at marathon or lactate threshold pace. So I don't know, I hadn't really anticipated this. I haven't really figured out yet what I'll do. I'll probably have an A plan and a B plan tomorrow morning, and then we'll adjust accordingly based on how things feel in the warm up. But I can tell right now, I would not start a workout with, at least not a fast workout, with the way I'm feeling right now. So that's right. On other fronts, I mentioned that I've been working on getting my race weight kind of dialed in, and it's moving along. It's kind of trending in the right direction. I'm not there yet, but I didn't expect to be. Usually I find if it's easier to do this gradually over 4 to 6 weeks, and I find if I do it right, then I don't have it negatively impact my training. And in many ways, it might positively impact it because I do tend to eat higher quality foods when I when I am cutting weight. So that's definitely been a focus right now, and where we're at, like 8 weeks out, this is this to me is kind of the time to start doing that. Like I mentioned before, I don't like trying to lose that last little bit of weight in the last few weeks, because my mileage just isn't high enough to create that calorie deficit. So it's for me a lot easier, even though it might be a bit counterintuitive, to do it while my mileage and intensity is high. It's just the calorie burn rate is so high that having a 300 or 400 calorie deficit, I just don't notice it that much, because my average mileage for the week is definitely burning an extra couple thousand calories, so I can still kind of eat as normal, mix in a bit more quality, and I don't find I'm really that hungry. I find I crave some stuff. Like I definitely miss my sweets, but I think that's all. And I don't think those are things my body actually needs. Still eating a ton of carbs, a lot of fruit, a lot of whole grains, vegetables. So that seems to be going okay. Anyways, thanks a lot for joining this week. If you're interested and you made it this far in the video, you might be interested. I'm starting out a newsletter as well. So I put the link in the description here, and obviously the content's just starting out, so there's not a ton there, but my hope is to start keeping that going. Sometimes in the videos, it's hard to get into the detail you want, and some things just work better written down. So that's kind of the hope there, is to be able to just have another platform to share things. So check it out if you're interested. Have a good week.